So the series that everyone loves to hate, Fairy Tail. Now in case you don't know, there's a sequel manga that's been going on for about, I want to say 30 something weeks now, Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. And if you think that it's maybe a spin-off, it's not going to be the same. Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest is essentially Fairy Tail continuing. It doesn't feel any different from the original series, except I would argue in the quality department there's a difference, and we'll get into exactly whether I mean for better or for worse. But nevertheless, it's been a long ride, and I caught up with the Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest manga. Let's talk about it.
Whether Facebook, Twitter, or the two, make sure to steer clear, cause I'm coming through like...
Okay, so in case you haven't heard about Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, essentially the Fairy Tail gang, Natsu, Lucy, Gray, Erza, and Wendy, I believe, and of course, you know, the Exceeds and whatnot, they went on a mission, 100 Years Quest, similar to what Guild Arts went on, and in this quest, they discover some old guy named LF Saria. Yes, I had to read my notes to know his name because it's a ridiculously hard name to say, but he sends them on this quest to stop these 5 god dragons. Basically, these dragons are even stronger than Acnologia, and at first I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, hold up, how are they stronger than Acnologia? Acnologia was the feared dragon of all, this is BS, blah blah blah. But there's actually a pretty interesting explanation as the series goes on and progresses as to why, you know, these guys weren't mentioned, I guess, in terms of like these calamities, and why is it that Acnologia was the feared one when there's dragons that were out there even stronger than him. But again, there was an explanation. So of course the crew goes out on their journey to find these 5 dragons, and the 5 dragons, we later find out a little bit of their names and what their types are like. We have Mercophobia, the water dragon god, Ignia, the fire dragon god, Alderon, the wood dragon god, Selene, the moon dragon god who controls heavenly bodies, and Viernes, the gold dragon god whose powers are unknown. And we first stumble upon the water dragon god. Now, honestly, I will say right here, I want to start off with this. Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, while it still doesn't feel all the way, like I always will say, Fairy Tail from very early on was wasted potential. Fairy Tail had the opportunity, had everything, the interesting story, likable characters, everything possible it had set in place to be one of the greats. It really did early on. But of course, we already know with Fairy Tail, and if you don't know, the fights a lot of the time, most of the time, just come out as BS, like it doesn't make sense. How did they, especially the end of the original Fairy Tail manga, absolute travesty, terrible. I cannot believe what they did to Acnologia and Zeref. So I was honestly apprehensive to check out Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. It's just mainly because I started reading a bunch of manga again, that I was like, let me give it a try. And I'll be honest with you, I actually had a really fun time reading it. Okay, now before you think, oh my god, Fenev, you selling out, what do you mean? Like, no, it's not the greatest story in the world, but it was something about revisiting the story, these characters, that for me personally, I kind of missed it. I even checked out the Fairy Tail anime that I want to say it's wrapping up right now, that adapted the ending of the Fairy Tail original manga. We already know how that goes, but it's still something with this manga in particular where the fights don't feel, so far from what I've seen, as ridiculous. I mean, it's still to a certain degree of like, oh, okay, you know, I guess that's how we're gonna do it. But at the very least, with the first fight that we had against the water dragon god, I can't completely say, oh, that was ridiculous, what the hell. I mean, granted, Natsu put the beats on him, but it wasn't really like with friendship. Because in case you haven't seen it yet or read it yet, basically the water dragon god, he has a problem. There's a villain that's above all of this, the White Witch, who is a split personality character, also known as Toka, her other side, the good side, whatever. But pretty much she used her magic and made it so that this guy, he doesn't have control of his own magic. So he starts sinking the island and the place that he's protecting. He turns the people into fishes so that they can actually live in there, because he's actually not a bad person, but he's losing control, and he feels as though soon enough he's going to kill everybody and hurt everybody, and time is running out. He's gonna die, he's gonna hurt everyone, it's gonna be a very bad thing. So of course Fairy Tail gang stumbles into him and has to take care of this issue. And at first I was like, okay, how are they gonna do this? Because I don't give a rat's butt cheeks. Like, there's no way that you're gonna be able to take this dude out and it's gonna be credible without an absolute onslaught. Because one of the things, again, like I said earlier in the video, is that these dragon gods, the reason that they're stronger than Acnologia, it's actually explained, and that's that initially they were weaker than Acnologia. So essentially all 5 of them ran for the hills. They didn't do it together, but they kind of were like, yo, we got to be strategic. If we're going to survive through this dude, we got to go away for a while. And then over time, a long stretch of time, they finally surpassed that of Acnologia, but they were regarded as dragon gods. You know, they became something entirely massive in terms of strength and whatnot. you could argue, yo, this is just pulling shit out of their ass, which, yeah, at the end of the day, like, it wasn't ever mentioned or hinted anything regarding these 5 dragons, but it still makes enough sense where it's like, okay, that's, you know what I'm saying, it doesn't feel like it's completely stupid or anything like that. It actually is like, well, they were weak, so they ran, they hid, eventually they surpassed him, now he's gone. And to be honest with you can't really say, like, yeah, people could say, oh, they surpassed him or whatever, but in actuality, how many people fought Acnologia? How many people knew how fierce Acnologia really was by hand-to-hand combat? Like, anybody that ever crossed his path, they either died or they got guild arts. You know what I'm saying? Like what happened to guild arts. So measuring Acnologia's power to them is really an unfair thing, as I'd say, regarding the story, simply because, again, most people in the fairy tale world don't really have the capability of going up against any of these dragons and living to tell the tale. So in the fight against the water dragon god, Natsu, the reason he defeats him is because he comes across, which if you see my video, in case you missed it, Ignia, who is Igniel's actual blood son. And the reason that we never heard of him is because dragons, when they have kids, they usually leave them with the mom, and then of course Igniel jumped into the future with Natsu and all that stuff, so he didn't really get to spend time with him. And basically Natsu eats the flames of this dragon god Ignia, the fire dragon god, and goes absolutely monstrous and beats the dog tar out of the water dragon god. Again, it's cheap in a way, you could argue, like, yo, so that's how we take him down. But he also had help from everybody, and there was a little preparation. Everybody had some type of dragon slaying magic boost, essentially, from Wendy, and I think it was just Wendy that gave him the powers. So they were able to gang up on him, but Natsu went crazy, and honestly, it gave me a bit of a flashback of before they ruined the whole END thing, where Natsu just loses it to the point of, after they defeat the water dragon god, he's like, yo, I ain't stopping until I burn him to ash. And I was like, that's cool. And then we have a really cool scene where Lucy stops him and hugs him and kind of burns herself up trying to stop him, and he comes to his senses. So it was giving me the vibe of END. Like, you could tell that these flames is so strong that when Natsu ate them, and he didn't really want to eat them, he did it kind of like, hey, I gotta stop this dragon before he kills everybody. But after he ate the flames, he lost his mind. So it's definitely showing that that's probably why Ignia is the way he is, on top of the fact that he's, you could argue, jealous, resentful, the fact that Natsu got to spend actual time with his real dad and he didn't. So you can see that there's a little resentment there, but it shows that he's so freaking strong, that's probably why he's out of his mind. So the first arc, the first big dragon that we defeat, of course, the water dragon god, we get introduced to Ignia, the fire dragon god, his backstory. And I ain't gonna lie, Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, as to where we're at right now, which we just started, or we're a few chapters into the wood dragon god, it's been freaking pretty good. It's been feeling a lot better than Fairy Tail, you know, the original series, in terms of the fights haven't been complete BS. It feels as though, because I believe Hero's writing it and somebody else is drawing it, but even the art looks identical to Hero's. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they're lying about the art being drawn. Like, maybe Hero's doing both, or he's just really doing incredible sketches to where they just got to trace over it. Because it looks damn near like Fairy Tail. And quickly, before we jump into talking about the Wood Dragon God, I gotta say that the fight against the Water Dragon God, some of Natsu's moves, I mean, the dude did like a Kamehameha on him, and I was like, yo, this is freaking hype. Like, honestly, the action in that, I don't know if we'll ever get an anime of this, to be honest with you, because it looks like the Fairy Tail anime didn't really get that much for the final season, that much praise or people really talking about it. I haven't seen many people talking about it, so I don't know if we'll ever get this animated, but that fight was freaking sick, and at the very least, it made sense. Not only did this water dragon get jumped by a bunch of, you know, dragon slayer magic, but also Natsu had eaten a fire dragon god's magic. So yeah, it's gonna be a rough one. So yeah, the way he put him down, maybe you would argue is just cheap, that, oh, he happened to get those flames and it happened to be Igniel's son, blah blah blah, but it made sense at the very least how the water dragon god fell. And again, the action looked just sick. The panels of Natsu looked epic. And then going back to the white witch, aka Toka, or well, they're kind of like two different people in one person. She's essentially been the one that's causing a ruckus, because she wants to whiten everything. She wants everybody to have these ideologies of that she has. It's kind of like, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West, essentially, but it's a split personality with a girl named Toka. And it was cool how, despite the main cast being the ones on this 100 Years Quest, they did incorporate all of Fairy Tail, where we get, you know, Gajeel, all of them. I believe Gajeel, because, you know, he's a part of that police force or whatever. He was the one that was hunting down and suspicious of Toka from the jump. So incorporating them, especially to where we're at now in the Wood Dragon God, it's been good at the very least, keeping them involved without it making like, because the Wood Dragon God, said to be the biggest dragon of them all. I mean, they're in a city, and the city is like his foot. which is freaking crazy. And of course they have to stop these dragons or whatever, because that's part of the 100 Years quest, which I still feel like the guy that sent them on this quest is evil somehow. I feel like he's bullshitting, or there's something there and he's not all the way telling it like it is. That's just my personal opinion. Who knows, maybe he's working with the White Witch, or he sent the White Witch to begin with. I don't know. But where we're at right now, the Fairy Tail cast, aside from the ones that went on this 100-year quest, have been basically bamboozled, and her magic was used on them. The White Witch used it on everybody, so we got like except Jubia, that she was able to break free. And I like that they're actually expanding even more on the Gray X Jubia love thing. Gray finally, of course, he accepted his feelings kind of, but it's even more forth that he really wants to be a good man for Jubia and be with her. That's something that they've expanded upon. And we have this Fairy Tail versus Fairy Tail matchup right now going on where we're at. I believe, I want to say we're like chapter 32, somewhere around there, 31, 32, maybe I'm off. But we basically have like Lucy versus Mira Jane and Lisana. A lot of really cool battles going on. Some of it is like, it's whatever, but it's for the most part some pretty good Fairy Tail. For Fairy Tail, it's been pretty enjoyable. It hasn't been completely ass pulls, and I ain't gonna lie, I've actually been digging it. Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. If you're a Fairy Tail fan and you don't really have a dislike towards it, I immediately recommend it, because you'll love Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest. It's better than a lot of the stuff that we had in the original Fairy Tail. And if you're a Fairy Tail hater, but you still had some curiosity, or you somewhat enjoyed it, I'd say maybe you could give this one a chance. Again, there's some stuff that don't make sense in terms of like, these 5 dragons should have been mentioned. You know what I'm saying? They should have been mentioned if they were that strong. But nevertheless, I still say Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest better than the original in terms of so far. It hasn't made a lot of the mistakes that Hero made back then. But yeah, it's Fairy Tail, so you gotta be cautious at all times. You never know what Hiro Mashima is gonna try and pull in the future, but it's been pretty solid so far. Kind of curious what you guys think though. If you've been following Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, how do you feel it measures up to the previous series? I mean, again, it feels like it's just the same series continuing. And if you haven't, would you check it out? Again, 5 dragons, stronger than Acologia. Kind of makes sense why they weren't around. They were weaker and then hid for a while, and then they became like a myth, so to speak, and now they're on this quest. And that's probably, if I'm not mistaken, actually, that was Gildarts' mission. Remember, Gildarts went on that 100 Years Quest, and he accidentally stumbled into Acnologia, but he was really looking for those dudes. And if Acnologia tore him apart, imagine what these dudes would have done to him. I'm just saying. But that's all I have for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you liked anything I had to say or enjoyed the video, drop me a like. I'd greatly appreciate it. And if you want more from me, make sure to subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram. Hit that bell and make sure you get all notifications. If you want to see any more Fairy Tail, or just in general any of my videos, definitely hit that bell. And if you want to follow any of my other social media, links in the description below. I'm World, and as always, people, have an awesome day. And remember the golden rule: anime and manga for life, boy. Have an awesome day. Peace in.
Enjoy the next ride, but I was the best ride. But I hope you know that when